Hi, this is Rick Hubbard, and we're going to talk today about a framework for assessing and developing web initiatives. Rather, it simply be a desire to communicate, a desire to negotiate business or do business on a web, or to do reputation management, whatever the desire behind the web initiative. The framework that I'm going to give you today I think is just very valuable. It was developed by Michael Dell. You can see here that this is actually downloaded from Dell computers. And this is an address that Michael Dell gave to the Detroit Economic Club. And it was called Building a Competitive Advantage in an Internet Economy. And it was back in 1999 when Dell was really just beginning its leadership in using the web to promote its company. So let's take a look at some of the things that Michael Dell said that could serve us as a framework. On page 2 of this address, he says something really important. He said, companies need to consider the implications of leveraging the internet for their business, that simply establishing a website, putting a web front end on top of your company is not going to create the efficiencies you need. So you must rethink how you're going to use the information more efficiently. That's one of the problems that people that first get started in the web encounter, is sometimes they have an assumption that just simply if they build a website that people are automatically going to find it, that it's going to automatically do what they want it to do. And that's just not necessarily so. So there's 3 areas that Michael Dell outlined as areas that we need to consider when developing web initiatives if we want them to be successful. And let's look at those 3 areas. In that address, Michael Dell asked this question: what are the steps for a company to harness the power of the internet, and how can you take advantage of it for your business? He said, I believe it starts with an intense focus on the customer experience. He discovered in his research that online shoppers, their loyalty is related to the customer experience more than it is things like price. He said the top 2 drivers of online loyalty are the quality of the experience and on-time delivery. And there's great ways to have great online experience for them, and with it being on the web, many things can be delivered immediately, so on-time delivery is not an issue. So let's look at what they did. They said first they wanted to differentiate themselves through positive customer experience by taking ownership of the customer relationship. A lot of people just kind of drift when they're doing website development. That's not necessarily their fault. Sometimes they don't have the technical expertise or they don't have the advice that they need, but they don't have ownership. Rather, it's by neglect or just simply because of a lack of ability or understanding. And the person that is building the web initiative really needs to have that ownership. And he said to achieve that they focused on 3 areas. 1, building rich content. The 2nd was growing their commerce capabilities. And the 3rd, establishing communities of suppliers and end users that share common interest. The first area is content. And by content, Michael Dell defined that as compelling content. In other words, content that the customers really wanted to have. It wasn't just putting a bunch of information up there that was in forms they couldn't use, or just to get a lot of keywords so that they would get found by search engines, but it was actually usable content. So the first of the 3 C's, as they're called, was content. The next one was commerce. Commerce, he said, should be thought of as all transactions, not just buying things over the web. In fact, the first activity, he said, had nothing to do with purchasing. It was simply providing their clients or customers with the order status. So the concept of commerce has to do with the systems that deliver it. The website itself is a commerce tool. There are other commerce tools that we'll discuss at a future date, but commerce is not just buying. It's not just a shopping cart. There are many things that will occur. Your email system could be a commerce system. Anything that you use to interact. Twitter, Facebook, all those things in one sense could be commerce system. The website YouTube, that's a commerce system. It is a system that is used to deliver some kind of content to the customer. And the customer, that brings us to the next point. Michael Dell said that the ultimate goal was to deepen relationships with their customers by providing the convenience, through the commerce systems. But ultimately, the final stage of it was to develop an online community. And community is the third C. So there's content, there's commerce, and there's community. So community is not just telling or announcing, but it's building a two-way relationship, giving an opportunity for feedback from the customers and suppliers. So how does that all come together? Let's look at it here. He said, in summary, the Internet is fueling huge opportunities and bringing new levels of efficiency to business operations. It is boosted both by productivity and profitability. As you look to harness the power of the Internet, focus on these three key areas. The online customer experience, which provides a strong, loyal base, rich content, high-value commerce that moves to efficiently provide things and brings communities together. So there we have it. Content, commerce, and community. Michael Dell's formula for success. It's a great framework for developing any kind of web initiative.